The media.
Yes, Riaz, I can hear you, and all I'll say is that was a fucking pain in the arse to sort out, wasn't it? Welcome to the We'll Talk Life podcast, mate. It's an absolute honour to have you on and chat to you before. And trying to work out the perils of technology, mate, but it's brilliant to get you on, pal.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. Pleasure to come on. I'm honoured to come on to your show, mate.
And as I said to you beforehand, I wanted to talk about your early embryonic years in football before, obviously, you ventured down a variety of different paths in your life. I think it's a very interesting story. So can you talk about your early years in football and whether you played football? What's your memories of a first Leicester City side, etc.?
First time I played football was obviously at school as a youth. One of my first games I really enjoyed watching was Arsenal versus Man U when they won 3-2 in the FA Cup final, because it used to be broadcast live on telly then. It still isn't actually, the FA Cup, still on normal telly. And I started supporting Arsenal, I think it was 1980, I think it was, or 1979 or 1980, I can't remember the year now. I became an Arsenal fan. But I always kept the football stickers, the football stickers, football cards. At school we had football cards. Panini one. I don't know if they were Panini in those days. I can't remember what they're called. It might have been Panini. I don't know. I can't remember what they're called. We used to collect these football cards, not the stickers, the cards. And I used to always look at Leicester's kit. I used to love Leicester's kit because that big collar, big white collars, the forks, and the way it was Admiral top. I think it was Admiral. Yeah, I think it was Admiral. No, I can't remember, to be honest. So long ago, And I used to love their kit. I used to like Arsenal's kit as well. This is before I became an Arsenal fan. And then I watched the FA Cup final. Arsenal scored 2 goals. They were 2-1 down, and they scored 2 goals to win 3-2. That's what I thought. What, it was an amazing game. It was the first game I really got to, wow, what a game. That's when I started getting into football. And also I was playing at school and that with my mates and stuff, knocking around. But that was the real first game I watched from the beginning to end, was that game. But the first Leicester City match was in 1983 in October. It was against Southampton. It was such a boring game. Oh, my days. It was so boring. Southampton, all the teams. If it was like, Man United or Arsenal or, the bigger teams, and I would have thought, yeah, what a game. But it was Southampton. It wasn't even an event. I think we won 1-0 or lost 1-0. I can't remember, to be honest with
you. Yeah. And how did the other stuff then in your life, in terms of the hooliganism and the fighting and the excitement that, came from that at that time for you, I would imagine, how did that all come about?
That's, I think at school, I was always never part of anything at school, because being at a school full of predominantly white lads, me and my brother and a couple of others were just the ethnic minorities, about 10 of us in the whole school. So I'm talking about 1,500 kids. I know about 10 were from ethnic minorities. So I was always on the fringes of any sort of subculture. I didn't really belong to the skinheads because they were fascists. And even though the original skinheads, Trojan movement, skinhead movement was about, stamping out racism and about ska music and bringing blacks and whites together, and etc., no racism. But obviously the boners hijacked it and they were just racist. The mods, I didn't mind the mods, but they were still racist. The mods were racist as well, which is really bizarre, because the culture at that time was just, there was a lot of racism because of the media, and because in 1972 a lot of immigrants came to Leicester from Uganda after Idi Amin kicked out 60,000 Asians. 20,000 of them, a third of them came to Leicester. So boom, just overnight there was in Leicester. It was like an invasion of Asians. So the racism increased when the National Front started gaining momentum. Like a working class movement of racist and fascist. And there, the argument was about immigration, and the usual thing that you hear nowadays as well. It just repeats itself, full cycle. Always goes full cycle. Just repeats itself every now and then. And so at school I couldn't be a mod because I couldn't afford the clothes, the parkas and the two-tone suits. I love the style. I thought it was a lovely style, but I couldn't really. My mum and dad got me a Harrington jacket and some two-tone trousers from the market, and I managed to get myself a pair of monkey boots and desert boots. But still didn't feel like I was a proper mod. You get what I mean? Like I was I was like a rude boy mod, but I wasn't really, if you get what I mean. Then I was always a soul boy because I was into jazz, funk, and music like that. So I started dressing a bit more like a soul boy. But even then, it was just my parents couldn't really afford the clothing. So I always wanted to belong to something, because obviously at school there was the Grebos, there was the goths, there was the mods and the skinheads. There was no funk boys or soul boys at school. Not really. Yeah. It was more into Northern Soul and Tamil Motown. When I was into jazz, funk, and I did like the black music, Tamil Motown and Northern Soul stuff, but I didn't get into it as much as jazz, funk, or the soul the modern soul in those days. So leaving school, I went to college. That's when I got involved in gangs, because I saw gangs of Asian lads and black lads sticking together stuck together because of the racism they sort of got from the fascists and the racists at that time. So I kind of joined a gang for protection, because when you're walking through town, you're always going to get a lot of grief. And as a 16-year-old kid, when grown men are chasing you through the town centre, it's not very nice, is it? It's like very scary. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So I joined a gang. We were called the FBI, and this was called. We call ourselves the FBI because of the female body inspectors. That's what it's called. It's so corny. And that name sort of rings bell now, apparently, because apparently some groups call themselves the female body inspectors, the FBI. So we called ourselves that. And it was like a little gang of Asian kids. We weren't tough. We just stuck together, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
One day I was hanging around in a shopping mall, a real smelly old dingy shopping mall called the Haymarket. It smelled of wee and it was really dirty, you know what I mean? It's like, but we used to love it because we used to hang around there until the security guards moved us on. And I saw a group of lads walk past me, and they were well dressed. They were wearing the Pringles and the Lion Scots, and they were wearing like a fila anorak. One guy was wearing a fila anorak. They had wedges and bobs, and their bleached jeans and trainers on. I don't remember what, I think they were Puma, Adidas, whatever they were wearing. But they looked cool. There's about 10 of them, and they looked like a tight military unit, the way they were walking. They looked similar, but they were different. Each person was individual in their style. I thought, and they were led by a black lad, and I thought this crew here looked really cool. This group of lads looked really cool. And someone said to me, "That's the Baby Squad, and that's such and such at the front, some black Rasta. He's their leader." And I was in awe of these lads. And this was like in the late winter of '82, and I was in awe of these lads, and I thought, "Whoa, these guys are cool." And the main lad, the black lad, had like an anorak, a raincoat on. It's like a fila anorak, it was red and blue. So I went hunting, So I went hunting for his coat, his jacket. Looked everywhere for it. I saw it, and I found a fila Patrick Cagoule. It was a black and blue one. And I thought, that's the coat. Not knowing that he was wearing a fila coat. I couldn't tell the difference. You know what I mean? It just looked the same. Very similar. The material and the way it looked. So I bought it 15 quid, I think it cost me. Now they sort of brought it back out again. 80s casuals have brought them back out again.
Yeah.
So I put that on. I started wearing really tight jeans, but I wore Kung Fu slippers. This is like, we're talking about late 82 now. So I'm just walking around thinking, and I had even mushroom perm as well. So I got rid of the Kung Fu slippers because they got holes in them. So I just bought a pair of, what did I buy? Puma G Villas. That's what some Puma trainers I bought. I think they were G Villas, or were they? Yeah, Puma G Villas. That's what I brought. Was it something else? No, Puma G Villas. I brought them. So I just tight jeans on, stretch jeans or bleach jeans, Puma G Villas and a Patrick raincoat. And I wore that outfit for quite a long time, for quite a while. And then summer of '83, I was in town and I saw these guys. They were fighting some geezer, and they all wearing tank tops. They all had flicks, nice pastel coloured clothing on and stuff. I thought, and I watched them fight this geezer. This one guy kept goading them and goading them and goading them. Some big bloke, was a man. And these lads were about my age, they were young lads. And they was ignoring him. And then one lad just flipped. I don't know who he was. I can't remember. To this day, I still don't remember who he was, because I didn't see him after that. I don't know whether he got sent to prison or whether he was just there and he ended up steaming. And they all started punching like this. That's how they were fighting.
Wow.
Peddlers. But they battered this geezer and they all ran off, scattered off. And I just liked the way they dressed and how they stuck together. And they went whoosh, rushed this geezer. So from that moment on, I started wearing, rewind. It was from the video, IOU, I forgot. IOU, Freeze IOU is a video of these young lads wearing tracksuit tops, bleached jeans, slit at the bottom with 2-inch slits and frays, and Nike Wimbledon trainers. Now I started wearing tracksuit tops, cycling tops. Underneath my Patrick Cagoule, I started wearing cycling tops, got rid of the stretch jeans, started wearing bleached jeans, and I started wearing Puma Wimbledons. Not Puma, sorry, Puma G Villas. I started wearing them. That's what happened. Just remember, that's just a flashback. And I started wearing this, and I started riding on a BMX and started, trying to be like these guys. And I was in the Haymarket one day, in that Smade dingy shopping mall. And my mate, well, it wasn't my mate at the time, he was looking at me across the way. And I thought, I got rid of the Patrick O'Gould there. I had a Fila tracksuit top on, Fila Borg. It was my brother's actually, but I used to wear it a lot. And he come to me and goes, I never seen that in football. So I looked at him and goes, what do you mean? He goes, what you're wearing there is an outfit the football we used to be called trendies then. That's the outfit the football trendies. I thought, and that's when it all sort of flashed back. I remember those lads fighting that geese, and I remember those guys walking through the Haymarket led by a black lad. And I goes, what, the Baby Squad? He goes, yeah, that's what they're called. They're called the Baby Squad. That's what Leicester are known as. To all the outside people who was known as the Baby Squad. He goes, I'm creating a firm. This is what his lad said. He was mixed race, half Indian, half white. He goes, I'm creating a firm called the YTS, the Young Trendy Squad. But we follow the Baby Squad. So he goes, we've got a big match on a Saturday. It was against Birmingham. I goes, all right, I'll go with you. He wanted me to come with me because loads of lads are going from the ethnic minorities, and we were going to show us down because Birmingham had a large black contingent. They were called the Zulus. They had a large black following of hooligans, casuals, trendies, whatever you want to call them. And I goes, yeah, all right, cool. So that Saturday, I'm talking too much. I think you should do a bit of talking. That Saturday.
No, I love it. I love listening to it. Carry on. I'm really enthralled by this because I when I was a kid, I was rightly or wrongly, perhaps wrongly now, knowing what you know about violence and stuff, watching The Firm and, Green Street Football Factory and stuff like that. I've always been fascinated by the clothes and just the excitement of looking at all these cool people wearing these cool clothes. And first like memories of it is like when, is it Bex from The Firm when he's walking through the streets to cool them, they get gang in a field tracksuit, and I'm thinking, yeah, that looks cool as fuck. And just carry on what you're saying because it's very rare that I don't speak, so I'll make the most of this opportunity.
Yeah, I like The Firm, the remake. Nick loves remake of The Firm. I think he's got it spot on. The clothing, the music, and how it was. It's really, really sort of down. He got it down to a T. But it should be 1983, not 1984, because by the time 1984 came, by summertime, we were still in the t-shirts and the bottoms and stuff, but the tracksuits sort of, the feelers sort of BJ sort of went out. That was strong in 82, 83. 1984, that sort of went out, the feeler BJs, but they were still, they were still wearing the tracksuits and they were wearing the t-shirt, but it wasn't the feeler BJs because they got really common and really, so people stopped wearing them. But apart from that, it was spot on, you know what I mean? Everything else was spot on. So violence, I can see why people have, they sort of attract themselves to violence because we're surrounded by violence, aren't we? Our daily lives, we see it on tele, we see it on social media, we see it in the streets, we hear about it in the news, we hear about it in newspapers. There's always violence around us. I think it's for young men, violence is like a rite of passage. It's sort of like a thing to say, look, I'm here, I'm a man, I can handle myself, blah, blah, blah. Now people use violence in a different way. People go into the cage now, or people do take up boxing, take up Thai boxing, they use violence in a different way. Anyway, so at that time I was 17. And like I said, violence as a young man, it just happens, you can't avoid it sometimes.
What do you reckon fuels it, like hooliganism? What do you reckon fuels violence? Is it times of hardship in certain towns and cities across the country? Because unfortunately, we are now seeing a rise in hooliganism, crimes and violence where people are off their head on cork at the match and then go and have a scrap afterwards. Do you know what fuels hooliganism, do you think?
Testosterone.
Yeah.
I think lots of men have a lot of testosterone. It's not just that, it's territory as well. Territory, testosterone, and trying to prove themselves, saying that, look, they get a name for themselves, pack mentality, mob mentality, there's loads of things that fuels violence. It's not just one aspect, it's many aspects that fuels violence. And it just takes that one little spark to let it ignite, And football violence was a way for us in the 1980s to let out our frustration, our anger at society, to show people around that we are here, we're still here, don't ignore us. And the way to do that was through dressing up in a certain way and committing acts of violence like football matches.
How could you first like describe your first experience of that situation going down within a football setting?
Mad. I never had that feeling in my life. Never ever. It was Birmingham way, like I said. I got the train. There were 70 odd like-minded geezers, well dressed. Every single person was well dressed, just about. There was the odd person that wasn't that well dressed, but the majority of us were well dressed. And I was in all of these lads, all well dressed. They looked so cool. You know what I mean? I had the red feeder BJ on, bleached jeans, my perm, and my Puma Givelas, and remember the same sort of outfit I had on, and a feeder polo neck. So we come out of the train station, walk in at New Street, going up some escalators, came out. There was like a pebble roundabout. It was like a roundabout pebbles, like a little mounted roundabout. Also, these black lads came running down, going Zulu, 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 something like that. And I remember this black lad called Derek, who was part of the baby squad at that time. He said, "They're the old lads, they're the old lads." We turned around and everybody turned around, and then next thing there's a massive brawl in the middle of this thingy, roundabout. And I'm right in the middle of it all, thinking, what the hell's going on here? Because I've never seen it. I've never been in a gang fight as big as that. Never. You know what I mean? I've seen gang fights, but on a smaller scale, like, 5 guys on 6 guys or whatever, but not, 100 odd lads or, 100 odd lads fighting each other. Because there weren't many Zulus. There was only about 20, 30 that came running down. And it was like 70 of us. So it just kicked off around. And I was right in the middle of it all. And I had this £1 umbrella. I remember this ginger head geezer come bouncing up towards me with a real bad case of acne. I mean, he had really bad acne. Come on then. That's what he was saying. I looked at him and I went to swing this umbrella at me. And the next thing I know, I was lifted off. My feet were going like that. And all I hear was "Your Nick Sunshine," something like that in the back.
Yeah.
I thought, oh no, it was a copper.
Yeah.
It was a copper. But before that initial arrest, there was this surge of adrenaline, fear, excitement. I can't describe it. I really can't describe it. It's just, you never get that feeling unless you're in the middle of something like that. People take drugs to get a rush, a feeling. That's artificial. This was real. This was like a real, natural, adrenaline, fear, excitement, all these things wrapped into one. It was just a mad feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. In those early years, you mentioned there about being arrested on your first occasion. In those early years, did that deter you in any way, or did you feel like you had to prove yourself and wanted more of it and work your way up not the rankings? Because obviously, I'm mindful of glorifying violence because I'm not into that at all, because obviously violence is wrong on every level. But I'm just, I'm very interested in your story and like the psychology behind it more than anything, because I think a lot of young lads aren't actually adults. I know I'm 23, are actually adults till the age of 30. We're all children in men's bodies, you know what I mean? And we've all got this pent up energy. I know I still behave like a kid, even though I'm nearly 24. But do you know what I mean?
Do.
Did that sort of like, spur you on to like prove yourself in order to make you feel a part of something even more? Do you know what I mean?
Well, if you get arrested for football, for fighting and football or being involved in it, you get basically, it's like saying, yeah, I'm part of this now. You kind of prove yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a weird thing. But then, in those days, you never get sent to jail for it. You get a fine, or you get attendance centre, we do a bit of community service. You never get sent to jail for it unless you're prolific.
Yeah.
But the only time we really started going to jail for it is when you've got a string of offences and they build up in the courts, look at how many offences you've committed. Then they'll send you to jail. But the first 2 or 3 times you don't go to jail, you just get, you get a slap on the wrist, you get a small fine, or you get attendance centre, or you get community service, things like this. So you get probation, but if you kept doing it, then you will get sent down for it. But then Margaret Thatcher came along after the riots, Millwall versus Luton riots, when Luton played Millwall in the FA Cup, I think it was in 1985, I think it was 86. 85 or 86. Margaret Thatcher started putting a clamp down on us. That's when banning orders came in. That's when they started jailing, hooligans if you got caught for doing it.
Yeah. You walked away around 87, didn't you? Or something like that? 89. Sorry, that I was reading that from the Athletic the other day, so blame them, or my concentration's quite bad when it comes to reading, so that's probably my fault. What made you walk away, would you say? Because like I said, I'm not here to glorify violence, in any way whatsoever, and neither are you. I'm just more like interested in the psychology of why these things occur. The clothes, because I love casual clothing brands, you feel as you Alessis, Stone Islands, Patrick, as you said, Adidas, I wear all that myself. Even though I'm in a wheelchair, it makes me feel part of something as well, because when I was at school, I didn't necessarily feel identifiable to my peers, in that I was always knocking around with older lads, despite being, 15 hours knocking around with people who my cousins like 21, 22 and above. I always loved the older music, and, I always loved the authenticity of that style, where I feel like everything's modified now. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this interview as well, and not just to glorify violence, because like we say, people do get hurt. And I remember reading a story about potentially why you walked away. Could you expand upon that?
It started in 1987 when I was born for when a girl got blasted in the face.
Yeah,
that kind of put me off a little bit. She was very tall and elegant. She was quite pretty as well. I remember looking through the window. I remember this glass coming out of nowhere from a Leicester lad, smashed her in the face, and I seen her.
Not good.
Yeah, just seen her face sort of split open, and I thought,
yeah, no,
man, I ain't down with this. And then from that is that I still went. Don't get me wrong, because peer pressure, and lads were still going, so I started going. I still started. I still did not, stop going. And then after 6 years of doing it, and then the thingy happened, must have called the Hillsborough disaster happened, and I thought, this ain't for me. I can't be keep doing it. Then Acid House came along.
I love that.
YTS, we just jumped onto Acid House, kind of left football vibes behind, and jumped onto this because it was a different buzz. We was getting a natural high from football violence, but we couldn't sustain it because I got sent to prison for it, and people getting nicked for it. There was banning orders, there was CCTV cameras, and it was just getting on top. But Acid House came along, and that's what killed football violence.
Yeah, I believe so. My uncles and everything said everyone just, started becoming huggy and everything because of, the substances that they were taking. And once again, I also have to feel like I must say that we do not condone substance use either, do we? But that again, as always, that kind of era and that house music has also fascinated me as well. I'm massively into acid house and house music and dance music. Can you talk about that period as well? Because that weren't even on one of my questions, but I believe that was also a pretty dark period for yourself.
At first, initially, it was great.
Yeah.
Different thing, and we was going to illegal raves, and was going to like illegal house parties, and that, we was going to like these sort of nice little clubs where they played great music all night. Great music, and the music was Chicago house. There's a bit of hip house as well. Just real mellow sort of sounds. You get high from the music and the way the tunes are played, and then when you talk, obviously when you take the substances and stuff with it, it goes in tune with. It's weird how it just sort of connects with with yourself. When you push at a certain point, when you hear a certain part of a song or something, or a track or something, you get that high all of a sudden.
My mum said that. Yeah, she's a similar age to yourself, and everyone like from that era, I know, just says nothing but good things about the music and the vibe around the people. But again, that also brings about, bad periods for people, because you almost feel like, I know, unfortunately, some people in my family have suffered with like addiction problems that perhaps stem from the start of that period, because not only are you, chasing the buzz of the drugs, you're chasing the buzz of the music as well. And I read somewhere that you experienced similar things, not necessarily of addiction, but you had a dark period of 18 months. Is that correct?
Yeah. Some lads went on to harder drugs. Some lads I knew they want to crack cocaine or heroin. They want to,
yeah.
some people have died from, drugs and stuff. But what happened to me, I took an acid tab from Amsterdam, and that made me go paranoid. Every time I took drugs after that, I went paranoid. I couldn't get a high from it. I couldn't trip off. I couldn't get a buzz off it anymore. It's just like I was like all the time, just conscious of, people around me. It was really weird. I became very, very weird in that sense where I love the music, but I just felt I couldn't go to a rave anymore, because as soon as I took a drug, I'm paranoid. So I was around and I couldn't get into it anymore. So I kind of shut myself away from everybody. I became an introvert, because I was a very sort of I was an extrovert person. I was always around the town. I was always people, I was a townie, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
And I did that for about 2 years. I was into acid house and house music, so going to to places in Nottingham, going to places in Coventry. Okay, Coventry. A lot of people slag Coventry off, but they were one of the first towns in England, in the Midlands, to get into acid house.
Yeah.
In 1989, we used to go there before anyone else did. Before we started going to Nottingham and other places, so they were one of the first places. I know a lot of people feel Coventry, but they were one of the first, places that had like a certain place called Reflections, and we used to go there on a Tuesday night, I think it was, or something. We went there a few times on a Tuesday night and just used to, take acid and stuff and ecstasy and just, rock there. We've got to know a few Coventry lads as well, which is really bizarre, because we hated each other. 12 months previously, 6 months previously, we were tearing each other's throats. Like we hated each other like with passion. And so next thing we was dancing with people from Nottingham, dancing with people from Birmingham, dancing with people from Coventry. These are all our rivals. People from Derby, It was a mad feeling. It was madness. But then obviously, drugs take a toll on you. I don't care what anyone says. They say, "Oh no, yeah." You keep taking drugs. It will affect you psychologically and physically.
Yeah.
It affects you. Eventually it catches up with you. It's only so long you can sustain it for.
Yeah.
And like some other people, they couldn't get the buzz off the ecstasy. They went to harder stuff. I started taking crack cocaine and heroin. So I got out of it. I'm glad I got out of it. I went to a stage of dark period in my life where I was neither here or neither there. I had no job, I had no work, and what I did was listen to gangster hip hop, and smoke marijuana all evening, and that made me even more paranoid. You know what I mean? So it was like I was just in a dead end. It was the worst period of my life.
And I read as well about, is it your faith and revisiting your faith that, brought you out of that? And that's something that I identify with myself, because I've never taken drugs or whatever or done anything like that. But I definitely have that hyper personality. So for a period of like 4 years after I left school, due to a few bereavements in both my family and the teaching assistant that looked after me and that integrated me in the school, I locked myself away in terms of my bedroom and that, and just started listening to house music and, chasing like buzzes, not even through drugs or anything, because I've never done anything like that. I don't even drink alcohol, but, researching about that era and becoming infatuated with like my mum's era and the music and everything, because I love it all, but I know that it sort of like brings its drawbacks as well. And definitely as well, faith and exercise for me is definitely something that, put me on a straight and narrow path in terms of feeling better about myself, and on this university course as well.
What are you doing at the university?
Sports journalism course at uni. I'm in my final year. It's a bit stressful, but we're nearly there. Sorry for talking about me there. Just
no. I want to hear about you. That's excellent that you found, your faith and your exercise. That's what I do. I've got my faith, and I go to the gym. I've started combative jiu-jitsu.
Oh, brilliant!
It's not Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but it's like more of it's 36 moves. We call them 36 chambers of the Wu-Tang. So this is like a piss take thing. So it's like 36 moves that we learn. But I've got back into, training. Oh, sorry, I think it's my.
It's all right.
I got back into training again. I've always trained all my life, from the age of 12 up till now, on and off, whether it's martial arts, whether it's weight training, whether it's running or whatever. But that dark period of my life, I didn't train at all. Didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
I didn't do jack. And then I started training again. Once I got better mentally, it helped my mental health, because I wasn't in a good place. I was mentally ill.
Yeah.
I was depressed. I was paranoid. You know, yeah, you know what I mean? It's really hard to get out of it, ain't it? You know what I mean? I just find it, I struggle to get out of it, but I managed to get out of it through my faith, of course, reconnecting with my faith. I never really was connected to in the first place, because I was always taught that you do this, you're going to go to hell. You do that, you're going to go to hell. That's why I rejected my faith when I was a
Yeah.
kid. Then I found the actual beauty of my faith, and I thought, you know what? I'm glad that I've reconnected in a positive way. You know, my phone's buzzing now. Can you hear that?
No, it's all right. Carry on. I'm probably buzzing with this conversation because often I say this to Stuart and stuff. You know, when you don't necessarily meet somebody beforehand, it's nobody's fault, but it doesn't feel as natural. Whereas we've had a bit of a conversation prior to actually, coming on the phone. So yeah, carry on. I'm buzzing listening to you, and it's hopefully when people listen to it, they'll enjoy it too.
So when I reconnected my faith and I started exercise again, I felt better here.
Yeah,
that's when I went back to back to studies. I went back to university. When I didn't go back to university, I went to university, got myself a degree, got myself a decent job, got myself married, got 4 kids. I did a master's. Now I'm working at university teaching English, giving back to back to the community and stuff. I also do a bit of charity work here and there. I don't want to go too much into that because when you do charity, you're not supposed to tell people about it.
I understand what you're saying.
You get ego, you can get big-headed, and you think, yeah, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this. And I don't like talking about the charity stuff I did or do, because then it takes the intention away. You know, I might become arrogant with it. So I've been doing a bit of charity work. I'm not gonna say what charity work, but I've worked with a couple of charity organisations. That makes you feel better as well. You know, when you do charity work, it makes you feel internally better. As long as you don't do it for show and show everybody, look, I'm doing this. Look, everybody, I'm doing. If you don't show people that you do it well, sometimes you get, sometimes it happens, you try to get money for the organization and stuff and try to promote. But if you do stuff privately without people knowing, you feel much better internally.
For sure.
Feeling, you know what I mean? But you feel so good with yourself because you've helped people.
And you must feel so proud of yourself for coming out the other side and, getting into a good mental state of mind. You learn how to appreciate the little things more in life. Don't get me wrong, I would say my mental health issues have returned since going to university, but in a different way, in the sense of the stress that comes with it's not like I'm feeling sad or down every day. Sometimes I do wonder if this is what I actually want to do, but then, when I speak to people like yourself, when I've even forgot about these questions, it makes me really buzzing to speak to people like yourself. And have you got any advice for any young lads or young people like myself who perhaps go down these roads of non-direction and stuff? Because I'll be honest, a lot of my mates and people that I know, they do like a bit of ketamine and all silly drugs like that, and you can tell they're in a lot of pain, but not as many people are as open as me as that on their mental health issues. And sometimes people can think I'm a bit weird by it. But have you got any advice for those people who might be listening to this, thinking, oh, I need to sort my life out, or I need a bit of help?
Right, basically, look, like I say, it's a cliche thing. Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. But the thing is, it can lead to 3 things. All the people out there that took drugs, majority of, not all of them, they're either dead, gone mentally doolally because of the drugs, or they're in prison. Some have come out of it. Don't get me wrong, there are some cases where I've heard people come out of it and they become better people, but not many of them. But a lot of people I know are either addicts, they've got mentally ill, dead, or they're in prison. So my advice to the youngsters out there, it's short term, but the thing is, it can have long-term effects.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? You can have long-term. I'm telling you now from experience, it has long-term effects. You might be now young and having a good time, getting to hedonism and doing this every weekend, taking loads of drugs, Charlie and acid and coke, crack or whatever you're taking, heroin, ketamine, that's a flipping nasty one. But there was that spice for a little while, wasn't there? Mamba and spice, and that was well. But don't do it. You can buzz off life. I know it sounds like a cliche.
For
sure. You can buzz off life. You can buzz off love. You know what I mean? And love can get you down there. It can do your head in as well at the same time.
I think when I experienced love for the first time as well, I think that's definitely gonna, you know, do my heading as well. Because don't get me wrong, me and Riaz aren't like, you know, preaching to people here. Because mental health issues don't just leave you. It's about becoming one with them and understanding that they will pass. Do you know what I mean? And they've certainly passed for you. You know, you've wrote a book now, The Memoirs of an Asian Football Casual. My mum's just stuck it in there to have a read of it. Big shout out to Stuart Mills as well for sending that across. You know, I'm gonna
lovely lad. Got a lot of
read
time.
it. Can you talk a bit about that book and the fact that it's also been made into a play?
Yeah, I wrote the book. People write books for fame, for money, or to get their story out there. The only reason I wrote that book is because I saw the rise of the EDL, English Defence League. They were around about 10 years ago.
Yeah, I don't like anything like that. Me, I hate racism of any kind or any
They're more fascist than racist, to be honest with you. Because they claim they're black lads and Asian lads and blah, blah, blah. They weren't racist. But a lot of racists attach themselves to it. Even though the group claimed they weren't racist, but there are a lot of racists that were, you know, joining them. So I saw the rise of the far EDL, the far right EDL, and I thought to myself, they don't claim they're far right, but they are. They're on the fringes. And I thought, how am I going to reach out to these guys? Because they were recruiting on terraces. They were casuals. These lads were casuals. Well, a lot of them weren't, but there was a few casuals with them. And I thought, if I wrote a book telling about what I did when I was a kid, maybe they'll read it and think, hold on, not all Muslim lads are bad, you know, they're not like that. So I wrote the book to educate these numbskulls, these, you know, if I can educate one person, I've done my job.
Yeah.
Steer one person away from that, you know, this movement of hate, I've done my job. So I started writing the book. I met some lads from back in the day I've not seen for years, got them to write their little stories, and I put it all into a book. And it took me 6 months to write it, but it took 3 years to be released. So I finished it. I started in 2009, finished at the beginning of 2010. No, I finished it in 2009. I finished it. Began in 2009, finished in 2009, but it didn't get released until 2012 because no one wanted it. No one wanted to produce it for some reason. All the book publishers out there didn't want to touch it, which was bizarre. You know, I mean, all the Milos, I think one was called Milo. There was another one called what was it all called? There was two major ones that were printing the books out. It was Milo and something else, I can't remember one. They didn't want to touch it. Then Countdown Books, who Acid Jazz Records owned, said, yeah, we'll do it. And they printed it and stuff, but they printed a draft, which done my head in. It wasn't the final copy. So I don't know which one you've got. Which one have you got?
I don't know, to be fair. It's
is it me sticking my two fingers up?
No, I think it's just you smiling on.
Yeah, that's the old version. That's got mistakes in it. There's grammatical errors. There's paragraphs in the wrong place. Incomplete stories. They printed that out, and I was reading. I thought, oh, I took this guy's name out. Why is his name in the book? Because he even said to me, "You put my name in the book." I goes, "No, I took it out, bro."
Yeah.
I goes, "Yeah, I did 100%." Then I looked at it because I didn't read the book. I was just looking at the cover, thinking, "Yeah, I've done it," and put it down. I may be able to educate some people. I've got other people. It wasn't just my stories; other people's stories in there as well. All that belonged to the groups, different groups that belonged to the Baby Squad. Because the original lads were the original Baby Squad. They're the main lads. Then they had little groups that attached themselves to the Baby Squad. So the original Baby Squad was like 60 members. Then you had all these little groups, the Troopers. You had R Lot, the YTS, the NRN. That's what it was called. Then you had the TRA. Then you had the MMA, Matthew Marks Alliance. You had all different little groups, Troopers, all belonged to the Baby Squad. But all fell under the umbrella of the Baby Squad. But to the outside world, we was all Baby Squad.
Yeah.
So I picked the book up and I thought, hey, I'm scratching my head thinking, I took his name out. Why is his name still in there? Full name was in there.
Yeah.
I was like baffled by it. So then I kept reading and I realized, hold on a minute, there's grammatical errors here. I changed it. Wait a minute. And I opened the book. There was half a page missing. I thought, hey. Then I realized it was the flipping first draft. There was 4 drafts.
No.
They printed the first draft. So, oh my days, I was screwing.
Yeah.
It came, but then it became bestseller in Leicester, #1 in HMV. But then what happened 3 weeks later? HMV went bust.
Yeah.
So it wasn't about the money for me. I didn't care about the money as long as the story got out there. Then I reproduced it again, Paul Hallam from Acid Jazz Records and from Countdown Books produced it again with different story. I had more new stories. It was color, bigger pictures, and better content, and it wasn't as many grammatical errors or spelling mistakes as the first edition had. Then we won the Premier League.
Oh no, let's not talk about that, because you sent us down the year before we sent you on that run, Burnley. We're the reason why you probably went on to win the Premier League and have that momentum.
Yeah, we did. Yes, we did. From that momentum, the Great Escape, we won the Premier League the season after. So the Kerr Theatre was based in Leicester. Wanted to write a story about the achievement that Leicester did, a story about football. So one of the guys, Dougal Irving, he's a script writer. He picked up my book and wrote a play from my book.
Oh, class!
Basically, exactly the same as my book, but he put it on stage, and the stage was the actual stage show. I'm not gonna blow my own trumpet because I hate doing that, but the play was fantastic. It was absolutely amazing. That's Stuart. He'll tell you. Stuart was there.
Oh, brilliant!
He came along. He came to watch it. I was quite happy to see him. I couldn't believe he came to see it. He loved it. If you ask him, it was a magic play. It was brilliant. And won an award for it as well for the best production of 2019.
That's mint. Did you find the whole process like a cathartic and emotional process, like getting your life out on paper? Did you feel like some demons left you at that point at all, or?
It was uplifting to write a book, to write and reconnect with people as well, and to educate people, because I know a lot of people have read that book and said, Riaz, that's a brilliant book. You've changed my mind. You changed my mindset. And also with the charity work that we did as well, because the EDL and Britain First were really strong up north, up your areas, up that. And there was some
sadly.
There was some floods in was it Oldham or York? Yeah, two places. I think it was Oldham and York. I can't remember now. We went up there.
Oh, we had the Burnley riots of 2001 when I was like 2 years old. I think it also happened in Oldham as well. So yeah, you are right. People do tend to have some very strange views, and it's about reaching those people and telling them that, come on lads, we're all the same. Look at me, I'm disabled. You're Muslim, but we're both having a natural conversation and buzzing off, speaking about it. It doesn't matter whether you're disabled, whether you come from a different country or whatever. Everyone's the same. We all go to the toilet. We all eat as tea. Do you know what I mean? And
if it was all the same, life would be boring.
I know, yeah, for
we
sure.
Have to have diverse. We have to have different people, different mindsets, different ways of thinking. If everybody was the same, we'd be like robots.
For sure, and I'm definitely not into that, even though the chair does move robotically.
Yeah, so let me add on to what I was saying. We went to Oldham. Oh, not Oldham. Not Oldham. Sorry, we went to Oldham. I think it was Oldham. I can't remember. It was a few years. My memory's getting bad. As I was getting older, my memory's getting worse. And it was the floods, and we just got stuck in. We started digging out and doing all this stuff, shoveling all the crap and putting sandbags in there. And all these locals, they was just looking at us thinking, what are these Indians or Asians, what are these Pakis doing here, sort of thing. And they didn't want to talk to us at first. They didn't want to talk to us because we all got beards and stuff, right? What are the Muslims doing here? That sort of thing. But when they saw us, we was grafting and trying to help them out, they were like, and they was like, hold on, and then they started talking to us. Then they started engaging with us. And there was one lad, he messaged me on Facebook. He goes, Riaz, you know what? Because what you did, there were 6 pubs that are strongholds for these far right idiots. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Goes, 5 pubs out of the 6. I've said, F Britain First. We don't like. We saw lads coming from all over the country coming to help our town.
Brilliant.
There's only one pub that was still Britain First. The other 5 weren't, and that gave me a buzz.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we got a bad rep. Let's look, all these grooming gangs, they've killed it for us. Okay, we know about terrorism, extremism. We can sort of, we don't like it, but the British public got a strong sort of will. They can handle it. But when it comes to kiddie fiddlers, that's one thing that no human being, the right man, can handle. We can't handle it. Yeah. I can't handle it. My mates can't handle it. But we get a bad rep because these stupid little gangs of 10 or 20 men in little towns up north have given the rest of us thousands and millions of a bad reputation.
For sure.
We got to try to not change the narrative. We got to try to build more bridges, because these evil men have done these evil acts to these kids, and it's not on. You know what I mean? Something has to be done about them. And I hope they all get locked up for life, and I hope they don't come out. because they've ruined our reputation as Muslims.
Yeah.
I think there's got nothing to do with our religion.
Well, from my point of view, you know, nobody's ruined anybody's reputation from my point of view, because for me personally, I know unfortunately I can't speak for other people. For me, race doesn't come into it. If you do very bad things, you're just an evil knobhead. It's nothing to do with whether you're, you know, what race you have or whatever. So I personally have got a great buzz out speaking to you today, and also about clothes as well, which is the final couple of questions to end on a nice positive. I know you've done some work with CP Company. Have you? You appear in their magazine in September of the FWO 22 range. How was that for you? And you've appeared everywhere else too.
We went in Stone Island. Well, I was Stone Island first in, I think it was early '87. And we started wearing CPC. You know, I started wearing CPC early '88, winter of '88, early winter, January sort of time of 1988. And I've been wearing it since. Stone Island CP. Been wearing it since that time. So to be called up to do some modeling for CP Company just blew my head off. I couldn't believe it. It was like a dream. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I thought it was a wind-up. I know you're pissing around, stop it. You know, being serious, we picked up five people, and you're one of them. Being an old school lad that's been wearing it since, you know, for many, many years.
Yeah.
They flew me to Milan, did the photo shoot. They gave me a pair of shoes, 2 jackets. They paid for everything else. It was just amazing. Met the main guy, Lorenzo, lovely bloke. He's Massimo Osti's son.
Yeah.
Massimo Osti was the one who created Stone Island and stuff. Mate, so I went to the archives a little bit later after that. Oh, it's just now I'm part of the CP family, which is just an amazing feeling, because I'm part of a company, a clothing brand which I've worn for many years, which is part of the casual culture.
Yeah.
It's a dream come true. You know what I mean?
What would you say? By the way, if one day you could put a word in for me, I'm in for these modeling, you know, contracts or whatever, send them my way.
Well, they're CP are diverse in that sense, where they like to have people from different walks of life. Try and put my mate's name down for it as well. He's disabled as well.
All right.
So hopefully at some time they'll get him to, you know, it's not Stuart, it's another lad.
Yeah, that'd be great.
To do some modelling, but they're very diverse in that sense. They don't, no matter what colour or shape you are, that's what CP is about. It's not about a certain type of person. See, we were the casual. Okay, the Paninaro movement in 1980s in Italy, they kind of sparked this CP and Stone Line look, but we kind of adapted it and made it look cooler. You know what I mean? And we kept wearing it. You know what I mean? So I think the football casual sort of really did, you know, England was the best. I think England is the best place to sell those products in the world. It was England. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
What does fashion mean to you, would you say, as an individual?
Identity. It's who you are. The first thing you do when you see a person, you look at the shoes, see what they're wearing on their feet.
Yeah, I do.
Can't help it. I just do look at the shoes and think. My mum walking through town once, I saw a guy with a tracksuit, yellow tracksuit top on. He had jeans on, and I looked at his feet and had pointy shoes on. And I thought, what a div. You know what I mean? Pointy shoes on with a tracksuit, tracksuit top and tight bleached jeans. And I looked at him and thought, pointy shoes? Who's going to wear that? Yeah. We wore trainers. I thought, yeah, he's an old school lad. We had pointy shoes on. I thought, you know, we always judge people by what they got on their feet. You can have the worst clothes on, it could be really raggy and scruffy, but if they've got a pair of mint trainers or something, then you think, yeah, it's cool, guy's cool.
Brilliant. Yeah, for sure.
Clothing for me is, I like the vintage stuff now. I like trying to find the old, because everything is, the word clone island, it's basically everyone looks the same.
Yeah.
You know, wear the same tops, they wear the same CP, same Stone Island, same this, same that. This is why I like to try to get stuff which is vintage if I can, but it's really expensive. And then just bring that up, because not many people wear that vintage stuff.
Yeah. That's half the problem, isn't it? Half of the really cool stuff, it ends up costing you like $1,000, doesn't it? That's the thing.
Yeah, really expensive.
But it's definitely a great passion to have, is clothing, and
expensive passion.
Yeah, for sure. And can I just say before we end the recording, Riaz, because that's the end of the questions, apart from what's your thoughts on well, gosh, closing down on Oipolai as well, but I sort of wanted to end on a positive note. I mean, it's up to you if you want to answer that question.
Yeah, thanks for it. Well, gosh, was like an independent company. Pete created it in Leicester in 1987. He started with vintage clothing. Then he went on to other stuff like the Stussy and stuff. And they started bringing in, it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And started bringing in, obviously the CP and there's 10C and the Stone Island. Well, you didn't have CP, sorry. The 10C and the Stone Island, the Ada special stuff. It was a wicked shop because I can get discount in there. I can always get the first dibs at stuff that comes in. Yeah, the big boys come along, bought it for him, but he had the notion that it was still going to run as well. Gosh,
yeah,
they probably said to me, "Yeah, we're going to still run it as well. Gosh, don't worry, you just keep overseeing it as a manager." So he stayed long as a manager. Then they flipping closed it down, and I'm sure he is absolutely heartbroken. But I've not spoken to him about it because I don't want to bring it up. But if I see him, I'll ask him what happened. He will tell me straight. He's a lovely bloke, Pete. He's a really nice bloke, and I'm sure he is hurt by this. As an Oi Ploy was another shop. Some of the clothes in there are amazing. Good labels. And like, well, gosh, very similar in its, where people go online and buy the stuff. Now the big boys came along, bought them out, probably going to turn it into a size or close it down like they did to well, gosh, same thing.
Yeah.
Disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. But money talks. When someone throws a couple of £1 million at you, I said, here you go, mate. £2-3 million. I don't know how much Pete got, but you just think, well, at my age, do I still want to run the store? It'll still be running, but I won't be there no more. I'll just be the manager and I can keep it running.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do it. Next thing you go, Bosch, within a couple of months, close the shop down, change it to something else. I think it's bad.
It's sad, but hopefully we can continue to keep the movement going and the conversation going around the clothing, etc. And, the fashion kind of things. Because once again, I do feel like we have to say, just in case with all the, political correct and stuff, we do not condone violence or drug use in any way, but I absolutely have loved this discussion with you, Riaz, today. And thanks very much for coming on, mate.
Before you go, before we say, it was a different era for the violence. It was that time only. You can't replicate it now because it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Arrested, you're going to get sent to jail. The drug scene, the house scene was for that era then. It was all new. I don't recommend young kids to do it now. The football violence and the drugs, they should stay well clear of it.
For sure, and that's something that I agree on. But what we can both agree on as well is I hope you've enjoyed this discussion, Riaz, because that's
brilliant, very natural. You know what I mean?
Thank you very much. And I'm going to pause or stop the recording and speak to you afterwards. But thank you very much for coming on, mate. You're a top man. Cheers.
No problem, bro. Nice one.